Mirror Within follows the story of Raven, a photographer who is gradually lured into darkness by the writer Carol. In this film, suspense does not begin with a scream, it begins with a look. In Scene 2, a single moment of eye contact through the window becomes the first crack that shatters Raven's sense of reality, establishing a tone of suspicion and quiet dread for the entire piece. In this video essay, I will break down how lighting, cinematography, and post-production together transform that brief glance into the beginning of Raven's descent. In Scene 2, Raven has moved into the apartment next to Carol's, deciding to take initiative in uncovering the truth. For her entrance shot, we wanted to emphasize that she is stepping into a new living space. The director designed a small action. Raven fumbles for the light switch and then looks around. Because the location's practical light wasn't placed near the entrance, we rigged an LED panel overhead and had a crew member switch it on in sync with the actor's gesture. To avoid a static composition, we tilted the camera slightly and used a gentle pan that follows her movement, allowing the transition to the next shot to feel seamless. When Raven walks into the bedroom, we placed a 1 kilowatt incandescent light outside the right window, raising it to cast its beam toward the left window. This setup created blind shadows on the left wall, adding texture and tension to the space. We intentionally kept the right wall and the left curtain within frame to compress the space, suggesting that Raven is already being monitored and restrained. As Raven looks outside, she notices a strange silhouette. For the shot in which Carol opens her curtains, we hung another LED behind her to prevent the interior from falling into darkness. The camera is positioned at a slight angle to give the frame more spatial depth. In Carol's close-up, we intentionally used a jump cut to echo the editing rhythm of classic horror films, creating a subtle escalation in tension. When Carol closes the curtains again, the cut preserves Raven's small recoil, the slight pull of her neck backward, so the rhythm stays sharp and continuous. Raven is startled yet intrigued, trying to calm herself as she steps backward. The scene ends on an empty shot of the fluttering curtains. We do not know whether Carol is still behind them, and neither does Raven. The uncertainty becomes a symbol of Schrodinger's danger. The curtains tempt Raven to open them, unaware that any truth she expects will soon collapse. Scene 2 extends the invitation Carol sends in Scene 1. Here we used no BGM, only ambient and natural sounds, to keep the atmosphere tense yet still. Every rustle, distant noise, and shift of fabric becomes amplified, mirroring her heightened alertness. Silence becomes a form of tension, one that leaves no emotional guidance for the viewer. This is the first confrontation between the two leads. Carol wears soft beige tones but exudes a more aggressive presence. Raven is dressed in black yet occupies the weaker position. This contrast hints at their destinies. One remains in control, the other spirals downward. First eye contact between characters has a long cinematic history, especially in suspense. In our scene, the gaze does something more specific. It foretells the ending. Raven's fear, curiosity, and hesitation are all encapsulated in that one moment, making this brief encounter a microcosm of the entire film's trajectory. The power of the gaze is central in suspense. The act of looking becomes a form of control, and being looked at becomes a form of vulnerability. In Scene 2, Raven loses control the moment Carol returns her gaze. This aligns seamlessly with the core inspiration of our script, the Nietzschean idea that when you gaze into the abyss gazes back. In this scene, the gaze is no longer a simple act of looking but an exchange of power. As Raven attempts to see through Carol, she simultaneously becomes the one who is seen, captured, and undone.